Okay, so many of you out there will not be able to solve this basic math problem without the aid of a calculator, primarily because you simply just forgot all this math that you learned many years ago. But let's go ahead and put your memory to the test and see if, in fact, you can do this problem. And what we have here is parentheses 1/4 minus 1/2, and parentheses divided by parentheses 2/5 minus 1, and parentheses. So if you can figure this out without the aid of a calculator, go ahead and put your answer into the comment section. I'll share the correct answer in just 1 second. Then, of course, I'm going to solve this problem step by step. But before we get started, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is John, and I have been teaching middle and high school math for decades. And it really is my true passion to try to make learning math as easy as possible. So if you need assistance in mathematics, check out my math help program at tcmathacademy.com. You can find a link to that in the description below. And if this video helps you out, or if you just enjoy this content, make sure to like and subscribe, as that definitely helps me out. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the answer. So the correct answer here is 5/12. All right, so how did you do? Well, if you got this right, let's go ahead and celebrate by giving you a nice little happy face in A plus a 100% and multiple stars. So you can brag to your friends and family that indeed you remember all that math that you learned way back in maybe the 1960s or 1970s or 1980s or 1990s, or maybe it was last year, who knows? But for myself, I was doing basic arithmetic, or I was learning basic arithmetic in the 1970s, which was a fantastic time to go to school, elementary school. I particularly remember my first grade teacher smoking in the classroom, probably because those kids were giving her a tough time, but those days are long gone. But what isn't long gone is the math skills that I learned. Okay, and of course, way back in those days, and hopefully today as well, what you have is just a piece of paper and a big gigantic pencil, and you have to focus on learning basic math skills one step at a time by hand. Now, of course, back in the 70s, calculators were just kind of coming out, but today everybody has a calculator on their phone, and we have so much technology, and that could be a really a negative thing towards learning basic mathematics. So a lot of you out there that have been to school or went to school, 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, well, particularly 30 years or more, can appreciate what I'm saying. So don't feel bad if you don't remember how to do a problem like this, because I'm going to show you exactly what we need to do in order to get the right answer. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into this. And a lot of you, again, are probably going to be like, oh, yes, I kind of remember this or kind of remember that. And that's perfectly fine. I'm certainly not trying to make you feel bad if you don't remember how to do this, because, again, we have these calculators. But let's see if we can kind of, brush off some cobwebs and get you to remember all that math that you learned many years ago. But here are the skills that we need in order to do this problem. So the first is PEMDAS. Now, what does that mean? Well, I'll explain that in 1 second. We're definitely going to have to know how to work with fractions because we have some fractions here. And we're going to have to know something about positive and negative number rules. Okay, so let's go to take a look at this first thing. What is PEMDAS? Well, PEMDAS, this is simply an acronym for the order of operations. So anytime in mathematics when you have a math problem that involves more than one mathematical operation, and a mathematical operation is addition, subtraction, multiplication, I'm going to write a nice little multiplication operator, and division and powers and some other things. But here we have multiple things going on. We have parentheses, we have subtraction. So we're going to need to know the proper order of operations. And this little acronym right here, PEMDAS, tells us how to do that. So let's just quickly explain this. So well, first of all, let me just state that this is a checklist that goes from left to right. Okay, so P stands for parentheses. So if you have parentheses in your problem, you're going to do the math, all the math that is inside those parentheses first. So obviously we have parentheses here, so we're going to have to focus on doing all the math that is inside of those parentheses first. I'll explain exactly how to do that in just 1 second, but let's kind of finish up this checklist. So E stands for powers, but really it stands for exponents. But if you had something like 2 to the third power, you would do these things. Next, this little number up here is called the exponent part of a power, and the 2 is called the base. The entire thing is a power, but that's what E stands for. Now, the next thing is multiplication or division. This is very confused. A lot of students think, oh, you have to do multiplication first and then division. No, we're going to do multiplication or division, whatever we see first from left to right, and then addition and subtraction, whatever we see first from left to right. Okay, so that's just a quick, fast overview of the order of operations. So we're going to have to be paying attention to this as we do this problem. All right, now the other thing that we need to understand is how to subtract fractions and divide fractions and multiply fractions. I'll show you all this in 1 second. And then we're going to actually end up with some negative numbers here. So we're going to have to be able to deal with positive and negative numbers as well. Okay, so let's just go ahead and take this step by step. And so the first thing we need to consider is our order of operations. And as I indicated with PEMDAS here, okay, and there is a lovely saying that goes along with PEMDAS, this acronym, that is, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Once again, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So that's just a little memory aid to remember the order of operations. I'm not sure what Aunt Sally did, but we thank her for her cool little phrase. And maybe some of you actually learned that phrase many years ago. It's been around forever. But anyways, we see here that indeed we have parentheses, and we're going to have to focus on taking care of all the math that is inside of these parentheses first. And we have two sets of parentheses. So basically, we're going to kind of think of these as two separate problems. So we're going to get the answer for this problem and the answer for this problem, and then we'll talk about dividing the results next. But let's go ahead and get started on doing this math. And what we have here is 1/4 minus 1/2. Okay, so I'm going to do this problem first, and then we'll do 2/5 minus 1 in 1 second. But I just want to show you something here that stylistically, notice how these fractions have an angled fraction bar. Now, a lot of you probably are used to writing your fractions this way, and that's perfectly fine. However, I'm going to encourage you to write your fractions, if you do write your fractions with an angled fraction bar, to write them using a horizontal fraction bar. So 1/4 we want to write this way, minus 1/2 we'll write it this way. So this is just a much better way to write fractions, especially as you progress into things like algebra. Okay, but there's nothing wrong, again, if you write your fractions this way, but try to write them this way. It's just going to benefit you later on as you continue to learn more math. Okay, so we have 1/4 minus 1/2. Well, how do we subtract fractions? Well, to add or subtract fractions, we need the same denominator. So if we look here, we have 4. This is the denominator of this fraction, and 2 is the denominator of this fraction. We cannot add or subtract fractions unless we have the same denominator. So we need to find the same denominator, and finding that same denominator, whatever that is called the lowest common denominator. And in this case, it is 4. Now, I can't possibly give you like a full, course instruction on the order of operations, fractions, and positive and negative numbers in this one little video. I'm just kind of highlighting some of these skills. I will give you some specific recommendations in just 1 second, but I'm just highlighting the skills that we need to have in order to do this problem. Okay, so here we have to ask ourselves, well, what is the lowest common denominator of these two fractions? That answer is 4. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to change this fraction's denominator such that it is 4, because right here we already have a 4, and in order to do that, all I have to do is multiply this denominator by 2. But if I multiply the denominator by 2, I also have to multiply the numerator by 2, so I'm going to end up with 2 over 4. Okay, so this is what we have, and now finally we can subtract these fractions because the denominators are the same. So how do we subtract fractions or add fractions when the denominators are the same? Easy. All we have to do is add or subtract the respective numerators, which are the top numbers of the fraction. So we have 1 minus 2 over 4. Now we're going to put this over the denominator. So we have 1 minus 2. We have to be super careful here because we have positive and negative numbers going on here. So 1 minus 2 is the same thing as 1 plus a negative 2. So that is negative 1. So the answer here is negative 1/4. All right, so as I promised, we are going to be dealing with positive and negative numbers. But again, if you forgot this stuff, don't panic, don't despair. I will give you some specific recommendations so you can relearn all of this and much, much more. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next fraction that we have to deal with, or next fraction problem. So that is going to be this part right here, 2 fifths minus 1. So let's go and get the answer of that. And this, again, we're just going to treat this as a separate problem. All right, so 2 fifths minus 1. So let's go ahead and just write this fraction using a horizontal fraction bar. This is not a requirement, it's just good practice. All right, so 2 fifths minus 1. So here is the problem that we're going to be doing. So right here, we need to think about this 1. You're like, well, I have 2 fifths minus 1. How can I think of this as a fraction minus another fraction? Because we have a fraction minus 1. Well, it all depends. A lot of you, it depends on your math skills, or how can you, or how well you could interpret number problems like this. But the easiest way to approach this problem, in my opinion, is to turn this 1 into a fraction. So anytime you want to write a number as a fraction, let's say I have the number 4, and you're like, well, that's not a fraction. Well, if you just put it over 1, now you can think of it as a fraction. So 4 is the numerator and 1 is the denominator. So let's think of the number 1 as a fraction. We'll just write that as 1 over 1. Of course, 1 divided by 1 is a fraction. Okay, so here we have our problem. We have 2 fifths minus 1 over 1. Again, we do not have the same denominator. What is the lowest common denominator? Well, the LCD here is 5. So we're going to have to take a look at these two denominators. We're like, all right, we have a 5 here, but we have a 1 here. So let's fix this fraction up by multiplying both the numerator and denominator by 5. So we're going to end up with 2 fifths minus 5 over 5. All right, so here, of course, 5 divided by 5 is 1, and now we have the same denominator, or the lowest common denominator. So all we have to do is subtract the respective numerators. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So 2 fifths minus 5 over 5 is going to be equal to 2 minus 5 over 5. Again, we're going to go ahead and subtract the numerators and put that over the denominator. So 2 minus 5 is negative 3. Again, we have to be very careful with our positive and negative numbers. So 2 minus 5 is the same thing as 2 plus negative 5 over 5. Okay, so now we have negative 3 fifths. So we did the two parts of the problems that involve fractions, at least subtracting the fractions. So we need to go ahead and kind of incorporate this into the problem this way. All right, so we have 1/4 minus 1/2, that's equal to negative 1/4, and then we did 2 fifths minus 1, and that's equal to negative 3 fifths. So now we can divide these two fractions. So effectively, the problem that we're going to be doing right now is this: negative 1/4 divided by negative 3 fifths. So now we're going to have to recall exactly how to divide fractions. So let's go and take that step right now, which of course is having you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Now, I wouldn't stop this lovely math video if I didn't need your support. I absolutely need your support. Although I've been on YouTube for 10 plus years, I have well over 2,000 plus math videos on my channel and 517,000 plus subscribers and millions of views. It doesn't make a difference to me. I am not stopping to teach math because I just love helping people learn mathematics. It's really, really important that people have solid math skills, whether they are a student or not. And what I want to show you here real quick, for those of you that are like, yeah, I used to know this math, or maybe I didn't really learn this math well enough, I want to give you two great options for those of you that are interested in learning mathematics or strengthening your math skills. So you're going to find the links to both of these courses in the description. But my first course here that I want to recommend for the kind of math that we're doing here is my Math Foundations course. This is a little mini course on basic math, and these are primarily the topics I cover in this 3-chapter mini course. All my courses are self-paced. The first is order of operations, all this PEMDAS stuff that we're talking about, fractions, everything about fractions, how to find the LCD, add, subtract, multiply, divide, place value, working with decimals, number operations. In other words, how to add, subtract, multiply, divide by hand. Again, place values and decimals, percent, positive, negative numbers. So if you want to focus on basic mathematics, arithmetic, if that's really kind of your focus First, we'll check out my Math Foundations course. You'll master all this stuff much better, probably, than you did in elementary and middle school. Now, for those of you that are motivated to learn, to want to learn math beyond that, well, check out my Math Skills Rebuilder course. This is a new course. A lot of people are taking advantage of this. I cover basic math, all this stuff I cover as well in my Math Skills Rebuilder course, but I take it a step further. Matter of fact, I take it many steps further because I'm going to teach you a ton of algebra, a ton of geometry. I'm even going to teach you some basic trigonometry and some basic probability and statistics. Of course, this particular course here is much longer, but again, this is a self-paced course. But by the time you finish this course here, you'll be ready for advanced courses in algebra, trigonometry, or geometry if you want. So these are two great options for those of you out there like, you know what, I want to learn math again, or I want to brush up on my math skills, or maybe you were just satisfied with your education. You look back and some of you not be saying, you know what, I wish I had better math teachers, or I wish I was a better student, or whatever the case is, and it just doesn't sit well with you that you don't have the math skills that you really, know deep down inside that you can have, or you never really learn. So, anyways, if you want to take advantage of these two courses, you can find the links to those in the description below. Now, let's get back to this problem, and thanks for giving me a little bit of time to explain these two courses. But again, my YouTube videos are really kind of quick tutorial type things. But some of you, want to learn this properly. This is the way to do it. You kind of want to get into a formal course of instruction. So these are those two courses. Okay, so let's go ahead and get back into this problem. So now we are dividing fractions. I have -1/4 divided by -3/5. Now, let's just kind of quickly review the rules for positive and negative numbers. So this is really easy. When it comes to multiplying and dividing positive and negative numbers, the deal is this. If the signs are the same, the answer is positive, okay? So if the signs are different, the answer is negative. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if it's a negative divided by a negative, the signs are the same. It's a negative and negative, so the answer is going to be positive. If we're multiplying a negative and a negative, the answer is also going to be positive. So the rules for positive and negative numbers for multiplication and division are super easy, okay? But if the signs are different, so in other words, a negative divided by a positive or a positive divided by negative, whether this is division or multiplication, the answer will be negative. Okay, so here, obviously we have a negative divided by a negative. The signs are the same, so our final answer is going to be positive. So don't, get distracted by these negative signs, but we'll leave them in here anyways. So let's go ahead and talk about how to divide fractions. All right, so how do we divide fractions? Well, really, we don't divide fractions per se. What we do is we change the problem from division to multiplication. So we're going to take these two fractions and we're going to change the problem from division to multiplication. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to flip the fraction to the right of the division operator. Okay, so this fraction is 3/5 or -3/5, and we're going to flip it upside down. Okay, so that's going to become 5/3 or -5/3. So this is how we divide fractions. What we're going to do is change the problem from division to multiplication by flipping the fraction to the right of the division sign. So now what we have here is this problem. We have a multiplication problem, -1/4 times -5/3, excuse me. So let's go ahead and see how to do this. This is super easy. So when we are multiplying fractions, all we have to do is simply multiply the respective numerators and denominators. So we have -1 times -5. These are our numerators, so we'll write this way, over 4 times 3. This is our denominators. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish this up. So negative times negative, this will be positive. Positive times positive, of course, is positive. So -1 times -5 is a +5, and 4 times 3 is a +12. And anytime you're dealing with fractions, you want to make sure that your answers are fully simplified and reduced. And this one here is. Okay, so hopefully this problem was interesting enough. And if you stuck with me for all this time, I certainly appreciate it. But again, the whole idea behind my YouTube channel is to, try to make math interesting and explain things at a pace that everyone can understand. And a lot of you were fantastic in math, many years ago, and you're like, boy, I was great at math, but I just, forgot this stuff. Well, it's kind of like riding a bike, but with math, there is a lot of skills. If you want to get back to how good you were in math way back, maybe, in high school or college, you're gonna, it's just not gonna come back automatically. You're gonna have to redo and relearn a lot of these skills. But if you have great math aptitude, you should, be able to relearn math pretty easily. But if you struggled in math a long time ago, do not, look at that and saying, "Well, there's no way I'm going to be successful in math now." Detach yourself because a long time ago, whatever the situation was, I could guarantee you are much better at learning as an adult if that's your situation. Okay, we just kind of mature over time and we're more motivated. So hopefully somebody out there will take advantage of those two courses. But hopefully this video was interesting enough for you to like and subscribe. And with that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your mathematics adventures. Thank you for your time and have a great day.